Meeting of City Commission is called to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown? Here. Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mrs. Houston? Here. Mrs. Tackett? Here. Mr. Rue?
Here, we'll go ahead and let Brian introduce the session.
Yes, Commissioners, we do have 2 work sessions tonight. The first one is to talk about our new microtransit system. And with us tonight, we have Via Transportation, Inc., which is the parent company of River North Transit. And presenting, we have our staff member, Jason Vai. We have TCC Representative Glenn Massey. And then representing the group, we have Clara Canales, Alex Lavoie, and Sarish Kassat.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to thank our city staff, community partners, and stakeholders who have contributed to this effort over the past several years. Their commitment, insight, and persistence have been instrumental in bringing us to this exciting milestone. And thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on the future of public transportation in our community. Over the past several years, in response to community concerns, our partners at the Clark County Springfield Transportation Coordinating Committee, commonly referred to as TCC, completed a comprehensive review of our transit system led by our transportation planner, Glenn Massey. That process included in-depth public engagement, ridership analysis, employer feedback, and extensive evaluation of alternatives to improve access, equity, and efficiency. The clear takeaway from that effort was that our traditional fixed route model no longer met the needs of our residents or our employers. Riders faced long wait times and gaps in access to jobs and healthcare. Local businesses have expressed concerns about aligning transit with workforce needs, and many individuals require more flexible and responsive transit options. To address this issue, a microtransit model emerged as the preferred solution. Microtransit is an on-demand service that will continue to serve our existing riders while expanding coverage, increasing responsiveness, and improving rider experience to set us up for sustainable growth and greater impact in years ahead. With that vision in mind, through our request for proposals process, we have selected to partner with Via Transportation, who is an industry leader in technology and enabled mobility services. Via will operate the service through their subsidiary, River North Transit LLC, and bring a proven track record in microtransit innovation to our community. I'm excited to introduce you to the team from Via, who will walk you through an overview of their proposal.
If I can interrupt, if you could make sure you speak directly into the microphone so we can hear you and also record it. And also, we're sorry about the setup. We'll eventually get back to the work sessions on the floor, but sorry you have to turn your neck and speak to us when you need to, but if you could stay engaged with the microphone so we can have this recorded. Thank you so much.
No problem. First off, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, for having us. We're very excited to be here and tell you a little bit more about what we've been working on with Jason and Glenn and the city. So we really appreciate the opportunity. We have a short set of slides to present, but of course, please interrupt us as we go if you have questions, and we're happy to answer those as we go. I'll first start by introducing myself. My name is Alex Lavoie. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at VIA and oversee all of our service operations. And I'll let Sarish and Clara briefly introduce themselves as well.
Just to echo Alex, thank you so much for the time here, Commissioners and Mayor. We're very excited to be working with the City of Springfield. Me personally, I've enjoyed our conversations with Jason and Glenn, really learning more about the city and understanding more about your residents and the need for transit here. So we're excited to be a part of that solution. My role here at VIA, I lead our partner support team in the Midwest, so I'll be working very closely with the team here going forward. And we support all of our partners across the Midwest, including here in Ohio. So thank you again for the time, and I'll pass it over to Clara.
Thank you.
Great. So
It's voice activated. Go ahead.
echoing what the team said, super excited to be here with you all. My name is Clara. I'm part of the implementation team. So I've been working together with the team, spending time on the ground, making sure that our solution is adequately configured to your community needs. Super excited to be here.
Great, thanks. So we'll dive right in. So we're here to obviously to talk about microtransit in the city of Springfield. A little bit of background on us quickly, just to sort of establish who we are. We operate over 100 transit services around the U.S., just like this. So we're very experienced in operating public transit. We work with cities, small, medium, and large, all around the country. We have a significant footprint here in Ohio, so we work with a number of the sort of your sister and brother cities here in the state. And we run a very similar service that launched earlier this year in Lorain County that looks a lot like some of the microtransit that we're going to endeavor to launch shortly here in Springfield as well. And so what are we actually talking about for the microtransit service here in Springfield and how it will be run? So we will provide everything. We call it a turnkey solution. So this is the software, it's the local operations that actually run the service day to day with a heavy focus on sort of efficiency, safety, and running a 100% compliance service. It's providing all of the customer service and support to the riders who will be using the service every day. And critically, it's providing the marketing and community engagement that will be needed both in the transition period as we move from the current system of fixed routes to this new microtransit system, and on an ongoing basis to make sure that residents are understanding all the aspects of the service and how it works, and that we're making sure that that the community really understands and is getting value out of what we're doing. And this bundles together into sort of a single unified solution. And I think it's also really important to emphasize we've been working very closely with Jason, Glenn, and the team to make sure it is a tailored service for Springfield, right? So understanding the community, understanding the important sort of constituencies that are riding transit today, and where we'd like to see growth, and also understanding the particular nuances of how transit is likely to be used here. So we've been working very closely and look forward to continuing to do so. Just to give a little bit of an overview of the phases of the project. So the current phase we're in is what we call the service design phase. So we're meeting on a weekly basis and doing some dedicated workshops on particular topics to make sure that the service we're setting up really meets the needs of this community, understands the current services that are being offered and the ways in which we're going to make sure we continue to meet the needs of those riders who use those services. And this phase we're in the midst of right now and will continue for another month or so to make sure we have a great plan in place ahead of the launch. The May to June period will really be focused on implementation. So this is actually doing on-the-ground testing of the technology aspects of the system and doing a lot of that community engagement work to start to get the rider base who uses today's services sort of engaged on what this new service is going to look like, and starting to get the word out in advance of the launch of the new service. June will be and the end of June will be the launch. We will have a period. The current plan is a period of 1 week of overlap of the current service with the new microtransit service to ensure we have a chance for folks to get used to it and test it out a little bit before we have the full sort of cutover. And we'll start to provide some data to the city team so they can understand how service is running. And then from July onwards, we will be live. And so we will continue to work very closely. We will have our team on the ground running the service every day here in Springfield, and continue to work closely with Jason and Glenn and the team to make sure we're iterating and improving over time. So I think if there's one thing we emphasize a lot at VIA, it's that we're not going to sort of stay static in the way that we run this for you all. We're going to continue to make sure that we're listening to the community feedback, listening to rider feedback, and making improvements to the service over time. Okay, so stepping back and just talking a little bit about the basics of what this is. What is microtransit? So how will transit riders in Springfield actually experience microtransit? So the booking process can be done in a variety of different ways. It can be through the smartphone application and tablet application that we will provide. We will also have a desktop-based web application. So if folks don't have a smartphone and they do have access to a computer, they can book that way. Or if they don't have access to either, they can call in and book on the phone. And we'll talk a little bit more later about language support, but we'll also do that in a multilingual way, so can support multiple languages as well. The riders will share trips, so the ride will come to them. We'll talk about just exactly how close it will come to them, but it will come to them, and they will share the trip with others heading in the same direction. And one of the things we at VIA started very much with a focus on technology and making sure that we develop the algorithms to actually create very efficient routes so that we can provide those trips in a way that feels very logical and doesn't take folks too far out of the way of where they'd like to go, but also aggregates people together so that we're providing an efficient and cost-effective service. Most riders will book on demand, so they can book in real time when they want to go. This is one of the key features of the system that should hopefully make it very convenient and accessible to users. But we will enable a pre-scheduled option as well for those riders who are existing paratransit riders or others, folks who seniors or others with limited mobility needs who might need a pre-scheduled option that works better for them. But we really think the on-demand aspect is a key feature, and in all of our experience, riders really benefit and enjoy that aspect of microtransit. And then lastly, the service will be accessible for riders of all abilities. So we will have a substantial portion of the vehicle fleet will be equipped to also handle riders in wheelchairs, and we'll have all the sort of the equipment necessary to do that. So I think just to show a nice visual here of what this new microtransit system will look like. So if you look right when this moves, this is the current fixed route bus network in Springfield. You can see exactly where it covers. The microtransit zone is in the blue. So this new microtransit zone will significantly increase transit coverage. So where you can effectively get a trip in Springfield will increase to basically the entire blue zone that you see. And at the same time, we expect the average wait times to be in and around 15 to 20 minutes. And so compared to the current headways of buses, which can, and the time to transfer, which is frequently what most riders are doing here in Springfield on the current network, this will significantly reduce the waiting time to get a trip and will allow you to go anywhere within the blue zone. So I think this is a really powerful part of the design of the new system. And by eliminating transfers, riders will be able to access the places they need to go, essential services, things like their places of employment, healthcare, other important sort of trips they need to make much more quickly, hopefully reducing travel barriers. We have a stat here. This is based on a tool that we have internally that helps assess access to jobs. Folks will have access 6.5 times as many folks will have access to places of employment within 30 minutes versus the current transit system. So the goal here is to significantly increase access and increase sort of employment and economic development opportunities. We will, as part of this transition process, one of the most critical things that we find in the transition process to launching a new microtransit system like this, particularly when it's replacing an existing bus system like we have here in Springfield, is to have a very robust community engagement process during the transition. And so making sure that we are out in the community at the right places to meet riders where they are so they can understand what changes are coming and how the new system is going to work. Hopefully we can use this process to get riders excited, but we also want to make sure we're reaching key leaders in the community and that they can also use their influence and be ambassadors for the vision of the new service. We will be out there over the coming months in partnership with Jason and Glenn and the team, meeting riders and making sure that they understand what's coming. And we will also make sure that engagement is locally tailored. So we're offering all of our sort of marketing materials in English and Spanish and Creole, so we can make sure that we're able to reach all members of the like we mentioned, riders will be able to book trips in multiple different ways, depending on their preference, smartphone app, web app, or call-in bookings. And just to give a little bit of, this is, I think, a helpful visual on what the model looks like. So a typical pickup for a microtransit trip leverages what's called a virtual bus stop, which is kind of an interesting term that we actually helped coin at VIA. It basically means rather than all the bus stops, because the service covers the entire city, rather than have only a certain set of limited bus stops where we can pick up, we will in advance map all potential pickup points that are safe for riders to get picked up at. So we'll do that work in advance of launching service. And then you will be told when you request a trip exactly where you're going to be picked up within a block or two of the requested pickup point. And then this will create in the system a virtual bus stop. You'll have very clear instructions in the app or when you're booking your ride on the phone on exactly where you'll be picked up. And we do this and ask people to maybe walk a block or two in order to make sure we're providing cost-effective service and ultimately using the driver hours that we put on the road most efficiently, right? So we have a limited, of course, a sort of a particular budget that we're working under and constraint. We want to make sure those driver hours go as far as possible. And by asking riders to make a little bit of a sacrifice of walking a block or two, we can actually increase the efficiency of the overall service quite a bit and keep the cost per ride very low. And so we've created this virtual bus stop system. But we also know that doesn't work for every rider, right? And so certain riders who might have limited mobility needs, who might be current paratransit riders, we can configure their setup so that they are always getting a door-to-door trip. So they do not have to do the walk to the corner. So we were able to create that sort of customized service depending on the individual rider. We will have all the vehicles for the service will be branded under a new brand that will be sort of announced soon. We're really excited about this. And you can see a couple examples of branded vehicle wraps that we've done with some of our other partners who've launched similar microtransit services. The one on the left is in Wilson, North Carolina, which is a city of a similar size to Springfield, where they've had a very successful microtransit program there. And the fleet will include a mix of both wheelchair accessible vehicles for a substantial portion of the fleet, as well as non-wheelchair accessible vehicles to make sure we can meet the rider needs for everyone. The vehicles will all be Toyota Siennas produced here in the USA, a little bit down the road in Indiana. We're excited to get this live soon. Just to talk, we want to spend a little time talking about drivers and how that portion of the service will work. All drivers will be rigorously vetted in advance. So every driver will have to it will be vetted for having a clean driving record in Ohio. Everyone will go through a background check up front and then on an ongoing basis every year. Every driver will get specific training, both in sort of ADA compliance for those passengers who might have disabilities, as well as sensitivity training for those passengers with disabilities to make sure they are equipped to handle all sorts of passengers. They will get both behind the wheel and classroom-based training. They'll get training in all the wheelchair accessible equipment to make sure that they can secure passengers with different needs in the vehicle. And they will get annual refresher trainings as part of that. All of our drivers will be hired from the community, so we'll be hiring here in the community. We'll be matching the wages of the current fixed route bus drivers as well, so that those drivers, should they want to, can come over and work for this service as well. We will also be increasing the total number of driving roles available. Given the nature of the service, we'll actually have slightly more total roles open for drivers than under the current fixed route service today. Great, and I'll turn it over to Clara to talk a little bit about the transition process exactly.
So we wanted to make sure that riders were considered every single step of the way during this transition phase. So during the service design phase, which we kicked off in March together with the team, we looked very, very closely at existing ridership patterns and data to design a zone and configure the system really as riders are currently using it. We'll also continue to verify all the address data and rider information to have that already preloaded into the system. And we'll reach out to all Dial-A-Ride and paratransit riders individually to explain what will change for them. Additionally, we'll be hosting in-person events. This will also continue throughout the launch phase as well as after launch, just to give riders that hands-on support needed. Our drivers and agents on the phone are also specially trained in ADA paratransit and receive continuous training and quality assurance measures in order to make sure that we are keeping up with those standards. We can go to the next. Amazing. Our proposed fare structure will promote simplicity while guaranteeing access for all. So as part of this transition, we're actually taking the opportunity to simplify the fare structure for an end-to-end journey slightly. Currently, the fare for a single ride is $1, but most people do tend to transfer and pay those $2 in order to get where they need to go. In the new system, we'll have $2 as a one fare for your end-to-end journey, and your reduced fare will be $1. In this vein of promoting simplicity, we'll keep the accepted concessions and passes the same as we'll go.
And then finally, speaking about the budget, the RFP that was issued by the city was actually very helpful and clear in terms of what the transit budget is for the city over the first 5 years of the contract, which is a 5-year base contract. Effectively, the way that VIA's pricing structure works is that there'll be an upfront cost which goes towards retrofitting those vehicles for wheelchair accessibility, for wrapping those vehicles, and kind of creating the brand that Springfield is excited to promote. And then from there, it's truly a variable cost model. So it's dependent on the number of vehicle hours that are on the road, and it kind of caps out at this, which is, excuse me, as this not to exceed cost on the right-hand side, which means that's the maximum budget, which matches the budget for the transit system here in Springfield. We're very excited to work with you all. We'd love to answer any questions if you have them.
Commissioners?
I do. I have so many. But I think you answered a lot that I initially had. So thank you for that. So I heard you mention that spots may be deemed safe or unsafe. How are those spots and how do you gain an understanding of what's the determination? Is there a rubric? How are those decisions made to deem a spot safe or unsafe for pickup? Long way to say that.
Thanks so much, Commissioner, for the great question. We will do a combination of, first, we will map all the potential pickup spots that look safe simply from sort of online mapping resources. And then we will actually look and scout them through a combination of sort of using Google Maps and then coming in person to evaluate ones that maybe are deemed a little bit on the edge. And so we will do a combination for actually covering the entire city. We will do a combination of those two approaches. But the criteria we use are, it needs to be a place where a driver can safely pull over, where a rider can safely get to the vehicle. So you need to have both, right? The driver needs to be able to pull over in a place that's reasonable, that doesn't have too much other traffic going by, that has enough space on the road. And then the rider needs to be able to access the vehicle in a safe place. But typically we would only do this on a corner, if there's an existing bus stop, we might use that, or in another pull-out area. And then also in sort of things like shopping centers or other areas, parking lots, we would also typically those are pretty good areas to pull over as well, and so we would access those whenever possible. And one of the things we also do is we map larger pickup areas like shopping centers to the door level. So we'll say, okay, if you have a particularly big shopping center or place of business, we can have a slider in the app that allows you, or if you're booking over the phone, to say, I want to get picked up in front of this door, that door, or that door, and we'll preload those stops in. So it's easiest for coordination between the rider and driver.
Okay, so when we're talking safety, it has nothing to do with those door-to-door pickups. That's completely separate. Because when I heard safety, I was thinking the door-to-door pickups, whether or not a house itself will be deemed safe for pickup. So that has absolutely nothing to do with the way you use the word safe.
Correct. No,
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Motor vehicle safety and the ability to pick up.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And then for the door-to-door service, is there an upcharge? And then I heard that it's available for particular riders. How is that determined?
Thank you, Commissioner. Currently, we have a certification process for individuals that meet the ADA.
Okay.
ADA is a required service to complement fixed route service.
Sure.
We've decided to carry that service over, so they will continue to go through the certification process. So basically, it's signing off, doctor signing off saying they have a disability that will prevent them from getting to a stop.
Okay.
And as far as the charge, do you want to speak to that, Jason? Or?
The charge for the eligible riders for paratransit would remain at $4.
Okay, thank you so much. And I have just one last question. Will there be like an intentional search for bilingual drivers for this new service?
That's definitely something we can prioritize. I think, like I said, we're definitely looking to hire from the community and sort of representative of the community. So I think if that's a priority for the commissioners, we're absolutely happy to do that. And I think would make sense in light of the service goal.
Thank you so much.
I was just going to make a comment that I'm excited to see the evolution of our transportation system in Springfield. And, I think it's just going to provide such a great opportunity for folks to get to their employment and some of the barriers that people face. I wish this program much success, and I hope that one day we're talking about expanding it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, comments and then questions. First of all, I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention that all of this started with a conversation involving Glenn and former Mayor Warren Copeland and then Commissioner Rue about 5 or 6 years ago. And I am delighted we are at this point tonight. I think everyone there concluded that while our current bus system serves some well, it was not serving a lot of people well and needed to be improved. So I'm delighted we're here. I want to make sure I've captured what has been said in simple terms. If I need a ride downtown from my house because I'm going to a local establishment to quench my dry throat, I can call or I can go online. I'll probably call, and within 15 or 20 minutes, a bus will be within a block or two of my house, maybe at my house, to pick me up. And it will deliver me to the establishment of my choice or to a place near that establishment.
But would
When
it be a
I'm
bus,
ready to
though?
go home, I can repeat the process.
I don't know if it would be a bus though, Dr. E.
A van,
It would be a van.
like a minivan, a big minivan, okay. So am I understanding this correctly? It's that straightforward.
Sir. Yes, sir. It is that straightforward.
Excellent. My other question, very serious one, because it was one of the reasons that prompted this whole discussion. Will businesses be able to tap into this and provide this service for their own employees? So if, let's say I owned a business, Esrick Enterprises, and I wanted to provide as a fringe benefit to all my employees free transportation to and from work, I can contact you and we can work a deal?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is something definitely we are very much able and happy to support. And would as part of the community engagement process, as we're transitioning service, we would be happy to. Our plan would be to start to engage with local businesses on programs like that, and certainly we have voucher programs that can be set up if employers want to sponsor their employees to have free transportation. So absolutely.
I think that's just tremendous because it's going to help business have reliable, dependable workers and allow workers to be able to get to and from work without relying on riding a bike in some cases, or my car won't start today, or I got a flat tire or whatever. I think this is a real positive step forward. So this is all good news. I can hardly wait till July. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for being here tonight and for all your work. I know this wasn't easy to put together. I just one comment. I actually downloaded your app while you were giving your presentation. It is super easy to use. It's very straightforward, and it looks like you even can like pick handicap. Like you can select, you can change your profile. It looks really user friendly. The only question I have is, I'm curious, have you seen an increase in ridership from people who had not previously used public transit after implementing a microtransit service in other markets?
Thanks so much for the question, Commissioner. The answer is definitely yes. I definitely think that we've seen, I think very consistently in the services we provide around the country, that microtransit has increased ridership in communities just like Springfield, where it's launched. And it's definitely both been a great solution for those who currently use transit or whatever the existing transit system was, and also definitely expanded the rider pool to help folks, an increasing number of folks who want to access transit in new, flexible ways. And hopefully it was clear from some of the earlier sort of data we presented. But I think a key way it does that is by expanding just the footprint of accessible places where you can book a ride.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the presentation. It was excellent. Thanks for the hard work and having a vision for this. And we're looking forward to having you in our community. Thank you.
Mayor, I think we need to have in July, bring the commissioners to the meeting in our new transit system.
That would be cool.
We'll go for it. Thank you so much. I believe we have a second topic for work session. Thank you for being here.
Yes, Commission. Our second work session is with NOPEC, which is the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council. So as you may recall, voters approved the city to enter into an electric aggregation contract to help control and minimize the impact of transmission costs that we see on our electric bills. Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council is that electric aggregator. And tonight we have with us Julie Springer, our staff member, who provides support and service to the board of NOPEC and the city, as well as Jenny Costanzo.
Good morning, Commissioners, Springfield team, and residents. My name is Genevieve Costanzo, and I am a relationship manager with NOPEC. It is important to note that I am not your normal relationship manager. He actually is home with his fourth child, a newborn, so he could not be here tonight, and I apologize, but we do work in tandem, so. Thank you again for asking me to come here tonight. I am going to really cover two things tonight, and also have the option, make an appointment to hopefully come back and talk to you more and to get into some deeper and other options that NOPEC has for the city of Springfield. But tonight, let me talk to you a little bit about NOPEC. NOPEC is an energy aggregator in the state of Ohio. We are the largest in the state of Ohio. NOPEC started around the year 2000, right after the state of Ohio deregulated your electric and gas. NOPEC currently, we operate on the idea of bulk buying gets you better rates. NOPEC currently has 243 communities in Ohio as members of our program. Because of that, we are able to go to market and really make sure that you as residents are getting extremely competitive rates without the possibility of having those rates triple and quadruple on you without knowing. NOPEC is a member organization so that you do not have to, as a member in NOPEC, this is evergreen, meaning that you stay in NOPEC until you choose to actually leave. So you don't have to go back every 2 years and try to negotiate a price. We do that for you. The city of Springfield joined NOPEC in 2018, and currently right now you have 11,497 households on the electric program in NOPEC. One of the things that NOPEC offers, which is unique, somewhat unique, is we offer grants to our communities. Now, it's extremely important to note that those grants do not come at all off the backs of our residents. In fact, NOPEC did not offer grants for the first 15 years of its existence. The grants came about more recently, and what we did is we went to our supplier and we said, we as NOPEC are bringing you 900,000 households. How much does it cost you to ascertain a household? They said about $27.50. From that, we negotiated that they give you back a community $5 per electric household. Therefore, right now, the city of Springfield this year got about $60,000 for the energy efficient grant. I do say energy efficient because we do ask that that grant is used for things that can be shown to be energy efficient, and thus they can help you year in and year out actually kind of continue your savings. NOPEC by the state of Ohio regulations, every aggregation every 3 years has to send an enrollment letter out to all of you every 3 years. They will send a letter out to all of you who are eligible to be in an aggregation. If you have chosen another supplier, by law, NOPEC will not send you a letter. You will not get kicked off of your own choice. There are a few other reasons why you may not get an enrollment letter for NOPEC, and that would be if you are in a PIP program or perhaps in arrears on your bills, or if you have chosen to go to the PUCO and just say, I never want to be part of an aggregation. Outside of that, you will every 3 years get a re-enrollment letter offering enrollment in NOPEC. NOPEC offers, another thing that's quite different, NOPEC offers you all a choice of price options. For the bulk of our people, we have what we call a program rate. And this program rate mirrors the electric market. Electric and gas is bought on the commodity market, so that means that it goes up and down, sometimes more often than not. Our program rate, as I said, mirrors the market. So therefore, if for example, the market is up, for a 6-month period of time, but then the next coming months, the market drops, your rate is going to reflect that, the program rate. We also understand that not everybody feels comfortable with that. So NOPEC offers you the option to get into a fixed rate at 12 months or 24 months. NOPEC also offers you the option to have a rate that is 6% less than whatever the utility has that month. And finally, NOPEC offers you the option to have a green energy type rate, which will buy back RECs. That's generally a little bit higher. That being said, let me think. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say, I'm sorry. There are never any termination fees with NOPEC, so you can get out anytime you want. If by chance you see this opt-out letter and you say, I don't want part of this, but I missed the opt-out deadline, you just pick up the phone and call. You are absolutely not obligated to be in the electric aggregation. So, coming to pricing. There's been, some of you may have heard on the news or through your neighbors that the electric pricing, the market is going up, and that it is. So you have currently been getting a rate of 0.645 cents per kilowatt hour. Starting in June, your rate is going up to 0.893 cents. So that's a little bit more than 2 cents. It's a lot of money for a household, an average household in Ohio, maybe a 4 or 5 person household in Ohio. That's going to be about $18 a month starting in June. Why? Well, first of all, the first thing is, let me explain. It has nothing to do with NOPEC. And I know you're like, oh, sure, it doesn't, but it really doesn't. What happens is in the electric is, NOPEC is a supplier. The utility is responsible for transmitting all of the electric on the lines you see. But then there's somebody else called PJM. They're responsible for the entire grid, the power grid that goes from Ohio clear across the eastern United States. It includes Virginia, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. It includes 13 states, PJM. One of the things that PJM does typically every 2 years, now last year it was every 3 years, is they hold a capacity auction. Again, the capacity auction affects every single household who gets electricity in those 13 states. The capacity auction is simply to make sure that on those hottest days of the year, that there is enough electricity produced to make sure that we don't have a blackout. So there's usually 4 or 5 days a year that they will gauge what the actual load is. Another analogy is if you are all building a parking lot and you want to make sure that you have space for everybody on the busiest day of the year, you look at the day after Thanksgiving and you say, I need to make all this space, even if it's not going to be used. That's capacity. Lo and behold, last July, the capacity auction, which typically closed at about $29.70, closed at $300, an 800% increase. PJM, 13 states. Right then and there is when we knew that we are all going to have this increase. People said, what the heck and why? Well, there are a few reasons. We're not, basically the easy thing, and I heard the mayor say to put it in simple, the easy thing is that they're not generating enough electricity anymore. Well, how are we using so much electricity? you all live closer. Data centers is one of the first thing that people say. To give you a real life example, when I look up on my phone and I do a Google search, I use X amount of energy. When I do that same search on ChatGPT, it's 12 times the amount of energy. Okay. So as that happens every day, as we've got kids doing, you could imagine that strain. Another factor is that there have been some regulations that have been closing coal plants all over. There's also not been enough new generation with solar plants. There's always been some issues sometimes that kind of get them held up. So these are some of the main reasons that we just simply do not have enough. What are they going to do about it? We don't really know yet. I'll tell you, as of this morning, I found out that the head of the PJM, who, by the way, is responsible or who reports federally to FERC, okay? Last week, he just up and resigned. So that happened last week. Yesterday, I found out 2 states, Illinois and New Jersey, have filed litigation against PJM because they feel that they were not upholding their fiduciary responsibilities to all of us. That is also happening right now. Thirdly, there were some coal plants that were in the process of shutting down. They have reversed that right now. Fourthly, and this is a big one, but it's temporary. As of this morning, too, PJM put a cap on the next auction. The next auction ceiling is going to be $350, still a high amount. Now, I say that that is going to be temporary because when you have an auction, if you have a cap, you know that eventually those generators will just go to other markets. They'll go to Texas, but as a temporary fix, in order for us, meaning PJM, the 13 states, to figure out what the heck we're going to do, they're doing this to help relieve some of the pain that we citizens are going to be feeling. And I don't know if I mentioned, they are talking about possibly, there's even been some ideas thrown about having data centers having connections directly to the utility so that they will bypass the PJM. And so these are a few things that are being thrown out. So I'm coming to the end of that fun piece of news for you. I wish I had better news. One of the things that the commissioners have in their folder is simple, very simple things to keep top of mind, as in, you know, if we keep computers on, if we keep TVs on, perhaps put them all on one light bar, electric bar, and turn them off at night, because phantom electricity is something that can be definitely controlled. Another thing, of course, the thermostats. I mean, if by chance you're out and you're working, programmable thermostats, if you can do that, can really, really be a substantial savings, in addition to just making sure that you turn them down. As with always, kind of making sure that you caulk your windows and your doors. So NOPEC, the last thing I wanted to say is, in one sense, well, you're certainly not in this alone. I have 62 communities that I report to. 22 of my communities are in Summit County. Their aggregation had a legacy price. They were paying up until last week $4.89. Summit County, they're not with NOPEC for electric. Summit County just renegotiated. Now they're all at well above close to 9.5 cents. So can you imagine that huge jump? Whereas, yes, we have a jump, but NOPEC is definitely on the lower side. Last bit before I do questions. You all can choose whatever electric supplier or gas supplier you want. If you go to, and I gave all the commissioners a pamphlet that said how to compare energy offers. You can easily go onto a website. It has been referred to as Apples to Apples, but it's Ohio Energy Choice. They have a list, and it changes daily, of every available price. We encourage you to be certain to look across the list because there are often monthly fees. There are often termination fees, and sometimes even it's just a 3-month offer. So you want to be careful. The last thing that people don't always remember, but I learned this from personal experience, unfortunately, is back before I was with NOPEC, when I was young and at home, I got into a contract, and then I went out to work. I just started. I was a stay-at-home mom, and I started working, and I forgot all about my contract. I guess there was a little postcard that said, "Don't worry, we're going to put you on our monthly variable," and I didn't even see it. So I kid you not, from 2009 until 2018, I was paying triple of what the NOPEC, this was for gas, but what the NOPEC gas rate is. So what I say to you is, if you sign a contract, please put in your phone a tickler system. If it's a 12-month contract, put an 11-month later. Oh, go check, renegotiate, call them, do whatever. Make sure that however you do that, you do that. It's very important to do that. NOPEC is not-for-profit. We are subject to the exact same auditing rules that your government is, but every single one of the offers listed on Apples to Apples are for-profit. So, whatever that means, that's not a bad thing, but I just want you to know that you have to stay vigilant, and you can do well as long as you're that type of person that will stay vigilant and not get yourself in trouble. All right, commissioners, I appreciate you listening to me, and I welcome lots of questions.
Thank you. Thank you for your detailed presentation. This is an
Yes.
example of bringing presentations like this to the city forum. So, when the commission makes a decision, we're trying to do the best we can to inform the community on what this decision involves, as complicated as it is, and trying to understand how energy is bought and sold is very difficult, but it's definitely important that we do that. So I appreciate you in your presentation, your energy behind it. Commissioners, are there questions? Crystal.
Just one quick question. So I myself, my electric bill has almost doubled,
Okay.
right? As of right now.
Okay.
So what you're saying is that in June, that it would go up by another approximately about $18.
Well, Commissioner, thank you for that question. She said, commissioners, well, you all heard her, that her bill has doubled. And what I'm saying is that starting June, there is going to be a rate hike. Every single one of your electricity bills are divided into 2 components. 55% of your electricity bill cannot be affected by any supplier at all. That is the utility. We have no choice on what riders they add, what fees they add. We have no choice. I should say we don't have, it's usually done, it's done in Columbus, so that, yes, there is a choice, but we don't affect, NOPEC as a supplier has no control over that. Commissioner, NOPEC's rate has been 6.45 cents since last November. And so if you're using 100 kilowatts per month, we still have only had, you'll see that NOPEC's charge has only been 6.45 since last November, but it will go up to 8.93 in June. So so again, that won't be your entire bill because we can only affect about 45%. The other part of your bill is transmission, distribution, and the supplier has no control over that.
So what was the $18 that you were talking about earlier?
Thank you. So what I did was I took the average, if an average household has uses 750 kilowatts per month at 0.645 cents, and then going up to 8.93 cents, I took that difference and I multiplied it times what the average is, and it's about $18.
Right, that's what I thought you were saying initially. Yes. So the answer to my question is that yes, we'll see the average household could possibly see the increase of about $18.
Sure, because
Okay.
you're, with just the rate, in the rate
Sure,
section alone.
right.
So the other section of your bill, which is 55%, won't change.
Right, I just wanted to
Thank
hone in
you.
on exactly, so that's yes.
It would be yes. You would always, and that's wonderful. It's very simple on your electric bill and all of the commissioners, and we have something on our website. You look at kilowatts that you used that month, it changes. You see that graph, that goes up and down. You just take that number, multiply it times your rate, and that will be your supply cost. So if that rate was at 6.45 and if you used 100 kilowatts every month, you would be paying $64 or $6.45. And then if it went up $6.45 at 100, and then if it goes up, which it is, to 0.893, that 645 will go up to $8.93.
So I guess I just wanted to really simplify it. I feel like I'm I just wanted a very simple, so thank you for that.
Yes.
And also, Brian, is there any way that we can get the handout uploaded to our website? I think this is like super great information for people, and so I wouldn't want to just be the only people that had access to it.
Yep, we will work to get digital copies of the information that was provided, and then we can put that up on our website.
Cool, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. I'll get them to you tomorrow. So we have them digital. Yes.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I think aggregating makes a lot of sense. The larger the market and the more people we can take to market, obviously, the more negotiation strength we have. That being said, the suppliers are essentially driving a price increase because we know demand is going up because of the increased use of electronics, the increased number of people around, and that doesn't even account for some of the shenanigans that they tried to pull with the General Assembly. That aside, it seems to me we should be looking at very seriously alternative energy, solar and wind, among others, because there's no stopping the suppliers. I mean, they got us by the throat in terms of they control how quickly they want to build power plants, what kind of plants, the capacity of those plants, and so they control the price. And that, like I said, leaves out the General Assembly, which it appears they also controlled at one point. But does that make sense?
It does, sir. And to your point, unfortunately, right now it is very difficult for a solar plant to be built in Ohio. And that is, again, legislative.
So one release of the pressure on price
Yes.
would be to increase supply. But I want to make sure I heard this correctly. The way of doing that would also have a positive effect on the environment is being blocked by our own General Assembly here in Ohio. Did I hear that correctly?
There is some restrictive legislation right
That's what I
now
thought.
for building
Yeah.
solar plants in
So
Ohio.
we should be talking to our state legislators about the need to release or remove some of those restrictions that would give access to more people and more opportunity for new companies to look at solar, wind, some of the alternative energies beyond the coal-fired fireplaces and the nuclear generators.
Thank you. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. And Julie mentioned something that I was remiss. NOPEC also has an advocating arm. And yes, we have gone and done exactly what you're saying. We have not seen any results yet, but we have advocated against the harsh restrictions for building solar plants in Ohio and some of the loops that
Could
they
you
have.
provide to us, not tonight, but provide to Mr. Heck, what those examples of
Yes.
those restrictions so we can get it out to the community?
Yes, I will
Our
absolutely.
community doesn't hesitate to notify public officials. And they ought to be paying attention here with power costs going up, electricity costs going up, we ought to be opening avenues for others to get in the market, not keeping them restricted. That makes no sense to me, not for the larger good.
I agree. I will add that flyer, which is a whole legislative flyer of some of the things happening, and we'll get that to you tomorrow, Mr. Heck.
That'd be
Yes.
great. Thank you very much.
Other comments from commissioners? Mr. Peck?
I just want to thank you. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Julie. No.
One of the things that I wanted to bring up was Jenny mentioned the grants that the city receives based on the dollar amount per resident. And so the last 2 years, we have used those funds to make things more energy efficient by replacing the Downs building roof with a greener resource to help conserve some of that electric. And this year we will be using the 60, we actually have some left over from last year. So we will be using $85,000 towards replacing part of, well, it will pay for part of the replacement of the service center roof. So the funds that we are getting from NOPEC, we are utilizing to make our roofs greener and help lower those energy costs here within the city.
Outstanding.
Way to go, Julie. You just let Brian off the hook because that was my question. Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to thank you for being here with your friendly delivery and kind of horrible news, but we appreciate you keeping us informed and, you know, teaching us and educating us and our citizens on how electricity works and the providers. So thank you for being here. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, and I will work to follow up and make sure that you all have what you need. And we keep an open line of communication always, and although I'm not your relationship manager, I'm going to appoint myself as the assistant relationship manager, so I'll be able to help you all too.
Thank you
Anything
so
that you
much.
should need.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there a motion to conclude the work session?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Call the roll. Thanks for coming.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes, to those who are in attendance in the audience, we have 3 hearings now, and then after the hearings, we will take a very brief break and start our formal meeting. We'll go ahead and begin with the hearing scheduled for 6:45, and clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown,
Here.
Dr. Estrop,
Here.
Mrs. Houston,
Here.
Mrs. Tackett,
Here.
Mr. Rue.
Here. Has proper legal notice been given of this hearing?
Yes. Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed change in zoning for 19.64 acres located at 2900 East Main Street, being parcel number 305070023408001 from Springfield Township I-2 and Springfield EEC POD Eastern Edge Corridor Plan Overlay District to CC2 Community Commercial District with a Commercial Arterial Sign District, and EEC POD Eastern Edge Corridor Plan Overlay District was published in the Springfield News-Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached here too is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on March 19th, 2025.
I move that the communication be ordered received, recorded in the minute, and filed.
Motion's been made, or is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes. Is there a staff report?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Estrop, yes.
Dr. Estrop, I'm sorry.
Okay, staff report.
Good evening, everyone. The property here shown on slide was annexed into the city in 2017 and has retained its township zoning with a city overlay district. Over the years, the property has gone through some permitting processes. A portion of the parcel's frontage was developed into retail, while self-storage and special vehicle storage was developed in the rear. The current applicable zoning districts are Springfield Township and City Eastern Edge Plan Overlay District. There is an existing wireless communication tower facility in the rear as well. There is a rail line to the west of the parcel and a city sewer easement shown on slide, and water line running across the frontage of the parcel, which has posed some challenges to develop the remaining parcel frontage. The parcel also does not have a city district, sign district overlay. While the current zoning district I2 allows for current uses, the city cannot administer a township zoning code, and this poses challenges in zoning permit processes for the subject parcel. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows this area as mixed use, low intensity, and light commercial uses, mixed or office uses are envisioned for the subject parcel, and those will complement the surrounding uses as well. The proposed CC2 zoning district will allow for existing uses to continue as legal non-conforming and will not cause hardship in the use of property for commercial purposes. East National Road is classified as 100 feet wide primary arterial public right-of-way by Clark County Thoroughfare Plan. And since the property does not have sign district overlay, the proposed city sign district will provide guidance for all new signs. Any pre-existing signs can continue their use and may need sign permits if they are being altered or refaced. The existing structures are also considered legal non-compliant, and the storage in rear will require conditional use permit in future if proposed for expansion of the self-storage facility. If proposed rezoning is approved, any new development will have to comply with screening, parking, fencing, and setback requirements of CC2 zoning district. Return reports from city staff state no objections and recommend approval of applicant's request, with City Planning and Zoning Division commenting that the surrounding areas have a community commercial zoning district and the proposed rezoning will complement the surroundings. Since the site has pre-existing structures and uses, they will be a legal non-compliant condition. Any future new uses or development on parcel will have to comply with the proposed CC2 zoning district and the sign district requirements as well. So the overall staff recommendation is approval of applicant's request. The request was approved by CEDA Regional Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. There are comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop.
Were there any objections up until the time of this meeting relative to this change?
No neighbors' objections received.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This just helps move this property along. It's already ready to go, and they've made good use of the existing property, and this will help develop that. So I will definitely be supporting this. Are there other comments from commission? Okay. Is there a motion to conclude this hearing?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston? Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Okay, the public hearing scheduled for 6:50 is called to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mrs. Houston?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here. Has proper legal notice been given for this hearing?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed change in zoning for 0.294 acres located at 317 North Belmont Avenue from RS5 Low Density Single Family Residence District to CN2 Neighborhood Commercial District was published in the Springfield News Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached here too is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published March 19, 2025.
I move that the communication be ordered, received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Staff report, please.
Applicant wishes to rezone the property shown on slide, highlighted in yellow, which spans across two parcels ending in 025 and 026 from RS5 to CN2. The applicant wishes to reutilize existing site and building for light manufacturing and production use, a CNC machine shop, light manufacturing, small parts, and assembly. Clark County property records show that this was developed in 1906 as auto parts shop and later expanded in 1945. The shop was opened in 2013 as auto engine parts and was sold to current owner in 2018. The property is currently vacant and the parking lot was being used as extra parking for nearby restaurant. There is no certificate of occupancy record for this property. As the structure was vacant for over a year, it has lost its legal nonconformity to be used as an auto parts store and warehouse. The current zoning district, RS5, only allows for less intensive residential uses. The proposed CN2 district permits the proposed use of light manufacturing and assembly as a conditional use. The intent of CN2 district is to serve as a mixed-use transitional area between high-intensity central business district uses and residential uses. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan shows future area as traditional neighborhood low intensity and does not envision area to be used for light manufacturing uses. Zoning map record of 1998 shows these parcels to be zoned as R1C, Single Family Residence District. North Belmont Avenue is classified as 60 feet wide collector public right-of-way by the Clark County Thoroughfare Plan. There is a 16 feet wide public alley to the west of subject parcels. It will be the owner's responsibility to locate any utilities or easements prior to making alterations to the structure or site. Return reports from city staff. City Code Enforcement Division has recommended denial. There were 3 reasons stated that this area is primary residential. There are concerns with traffic flow to neighborhood and issues with parking. Limited parking available on parcel and residential streets do not have enough room to accommodate additional parking. City Planning and Zoning Division recommended denial. The zoning map of 1998 shows that this area was intended for residential uses. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan does not envision this area to be light manufacturing uses. A small-scale retail, office, civic, or multifamily use is recommended for this area. The property is surrounded by residential zones and uses and a few small-scale home, business, and retail restaurant uses. The proposed district does not meet the intent of serving as a mixed-use transitional area, and it does not complement surroundings and will be considered spot zoning. If the rezoning is approved by City Commission, the proposed use of light manufacturing will be subject to Board of Zoning Appeals approvals in the future. So the overall staff recommendation is denial of applicant's request. This request was approved unanimously by the City Planning Board. Thank you.
Thank you. There are comments from commissioners? Dr. Esprout.
Same question. Were there any complaints relative to this rezoning communicated to you before tonight's meeting?
Yes, so there was a caller with concerns of parking and noise that will be present due to the machine shop use. But there was also a letter from neighbors supporting the proposed rezoning and use, saying that even if there were concerns of noise or traffic, those will be outweighed by the benefit this rezoning will bring to neighborhood by bringing in use to the vacant building.
So
Thank you.
a point of clarity. So there's residents on each side of this, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so let's say the use of this owner would be light and obviously maybe no noise, but changing this allows another owner to come in and have a pretty loud machine shop if they want, right? Essentially.
This could essentially change the character of that street.
And
So-
this, again, spot zoning for those, it is exactly what it is. It means that this little spot is not conducive to the neighborhood use, right?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I understand somebody wanting to use property they may own for best use. I get that, and I don't begrudge that effort at all, but I definitely I have sincere concerns about spot zoning and changing the complete, a neighborhood like that. So I have a concern about this, and I know that your recommendation's no and others, and I haven't heard a yes from anybody, except I'm sure the landowner. So thank you for the report. Are there other comments from commissioners?
I do have a quick question to piggyback off of that. So if another business, say this business vacates, another business moves in, would we have to approve that next business moving into the building? No.
The proposed use that is requested by the applicant, the machine shop, that was of concern. There are other uses listed under the CN2, which is essentially a neighborhood commercial district that has low intensity uses listed under it. So if it was a different proposed use, it may have been recommended approval.
Okay. But in the future, we would not have to, somebody could just move in and do whatever they pleased
It
in
may
that
not be as
space.
good of a neighbor as this person intends to be. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we would have no control over that as a city. Okay.
Thank you. Is there a motion to
I do have one
go
more.
ahead?
When we're updating the zoning manager, are we going to be updating those maps as well? Like that one was from like 1998?
Yes.
Yes.
As part of the new zoning
Okay,
code, there'll
great.
be new maps and
I assumed that, but I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Good point of clarity. Is there a motion to conclude this hearing?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes. The hearing scheduled for 6:55 is called to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Mrs. Houston?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here. Has proper legal notice been given of this hearing?
Notice of a public hearing for the purpose of considering the proposed change in zoning for 1.5 acres located at 430 West Liberty Street from M1 General Manufacturing District to CC2 Community Commercial District was published in the Springfield News Sun, a newspaper of general circulation within the city. Attached here too is a true and correct copy of the legal notice published on March 19, 2025.
I move that the communication be ordered received, recorded in the minutes, and filed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Staff report, please.
Applicant wishes to rezone the subject parcel from manufacturing to commercial for proposed auto repair shop. The subject parcel had a retail store built in the 1950s, after which a few improvements were done to the site in 1998. From 1999 to 2004, the site and buildings were used for storage and warehouse. There are records of occupancy for a motor vehicle repair garage. The current owner of property had purchased site in 2002. The current zoning of M1 allows for auto uses under conditional uses, but the owner here is requesting the proposed CC2 district, which also allows for auto uses under conditional uses. Zoning map from 2001 shows that the subject parcel was zoned I1, which was an industrial district. The Clark County Comprehensive Plan of 2018 shows future character area as industrial, while the future character of parcel, shows the land use to be used as manufacturing or industrial. City staff and surrounding community does not envision the parcel to be developed for such uses. A manufacturing industrial land use is not compatible with the surrounding neighborhood or residential areas. The Engaged Neighborhood Plan of 2020 had also envisioned the area to be less intense in land use and does not recommend an industrial or manufacturing use. The proposed CC2 district is viable for the site. West Liberty Street is classified as 60 feet wide collector public right-of-way by Clark County Thoroughfare Plan. West Liberty Street is the only point of access for the site and is currently unpaved within the site. The bike trail is to the west of the parcel. Oakwood Place to the north of parcel is undeveloped and unpaved right-of-way, and the site cannot be accessed from this right-of-way. There is a 16 feet wide public alley running north-south of the parcel, which makes the parcel subject to a plat review before any new structures are proposed. A survey map will be essential to determine if any public right-of-ways or alleyways exist across the parcel, and if the parcel lines are accurate for it to be developed further. Since access to CC2 district should be directly from an arterial or collector street and not through a residential district, it does not align with the intent of CC2 district, as West Liberty Street runs across the residential districts. It will be the owner's responsibility to locate any easements prior to any new construction or development of parcel. Return reports from city staff. City Code Enforcement Division has recommended denial, saying that Code Compliance Division has received complaints in 2023 and 2024. The orders were issued in 2023 for violations pertaining to junk and trash, zoning, junk vehicles, and exterior of structure. A city contractor abated the junk and trash violations. The owner had at that time evicted the tenant and brought the violations into compliance. There were orders issued again in 2024 for violations pertaining to zoning, junk vehicles, and junk and trash. The orders were issued and the tenant who were operating the business there were relocated elsewhere, and the violations were brought to compliance. City Planning and Zoning Division has recommended approval with conditions, and these are the conditions. The site was developed for intensive commercial or industrial uses, but proposed zoning change to commercial district is recommended approval, as it has less intensive land uses than the current manufacturing district. The current zoning district conditionally permits for auto-oriented uses, but the owner has chosen to apply for zoning district change from M1 to CC2. Any drives and parking spaces will need to be paved by impervious surfaces such as asphalt, concrete. It is also recommended to survey the land to see if any public alleys or easements exist. So the overall staff recommendation is approval of applicant's request for rezoning on condition that if the request is approved by City Commission, the applicant will have to apply for a conditional use permit for the proposed auto-oriented use. And the applicant should also review applicable code chapters for accessory uses and other site development requirements. Applicant's request was a recommended denial by the City Planning Board, and the decision was unanimous. Thank you.
Comments from commissioners? Dr. Estroff.
At one point, been several years ago, we asked an applicant to complete some work before we considered the application. Would that be applicable in this case or not? Because clearly you said there are conditions that the applicant is going to have to meet. Question is, do we ask him or her to meet those conditions before or during or after? And my second question is my usual one. You can answer it first. Were there any complaints that came forward up to tonight's meeting?
There were many callers opposing the rezoning, and also there were neighbors present at the meeting in opposition of applicant's request.
Brian, what?
Yeah, in light of the complaints that have come from the surrounding neighbors at the meeting, the various phone calls and so forth, my recommendation is Commission would consider this request as presented with the plan board's recommendation of denial and proceed to vote on it 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Would it be possible to hear from someone that could be impacted, that someone from the neighborhood, their thoughts on this? If you could come to the mic for me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joyce Howard, and I live at 405 West Liberty, just a couple houses down the street. This is my this will be my third visit for the same purpose. And it is very disheartening to know that our system seems to allow this to continue on and on, like we turned it down and it was denied before, then along we start all over again. And my question is, can we continue to do this again and again and again? Where does it stop that no means no? I have lived in that house for 63 years. I've seen children come and grow. I've seen parents move, but what has happened? The owners now have moved. I am the second person owner in the block. The others, including the young man who owns this building, he doesn't care what happens at building. All he wants is his money. And whatever it takes, whatever he has to do, he'll do it to get by temporarily and start all over again and try to rent it to sell it to someone else. And we go through this again and again and again. Well, it is very disheartening. And like I say, the block is a dead-end block. There's children, quite a few children, young, pardon me, my great-grandbabies, and all down the block. It's just not fair that we have to go through this again and again and again. And I would appreciate it if you would give it a second thought. And like we've been before, the zoning board, not only me, my other neighbors haven't been here tonight. I'm kind of surprised that they are on Oakwood Place and they have their own problems with the same company. And I just ask you, please, thank you to give it some further thought.
And thank you so much for
Thank you, Ms.
coming over here.
Joyce. I appreciate your time.
Commission, I did want to just. Oh.
No, we can't go any further with this. I kind of stepped out of order. I just needed to hear from one person because I was looking at Ms. Owens and seeing what they were thinking, trying to make eye contact. So I just needed to verbally hear someone. So, sir, if you could just wait for your comment or grab a comment card or something. I don't know.
Hang on, I got it.
Sorry, let me turn it over to Mayor Rue. Ms. Joyce, can you
I
give
will
me a
ask
moment?
for comments after the hearing, which you would have had a chance to speak. So if there's anything else you'd like to say, go ahead and say it. And then, sir, you're welcome to come up after and say something. Ma'am, if you'd like to go ahead and finish your comment on the hearing.
I just wanted to make a comment to prove my point that it was my house that was on Channel 7 3 days last week for the dog bite. It was my next door neighbor's grandson.
Thank you. Sir, would you like to go ahead and make a comment on this hearing?
As he walks up, I do want to apologize, Mayor Rue, if I got out of order.
Dave's really mad.
Thank you guys for allowing me to speak. Joyce, I'm so sorry to hear. My father owns that business, and
Talk in the mic for us, please.
yeah, my father owns that business. And growing up, Joyce, you may remember since you've been there so long, in the early 2000s, it was a thriving business. It was a landscape business. But landscaping is, pretty much not suitable for that business. So in order for us to do something with the property and, maybe stop the junk and trash, stop the people from dumping, stop people from crossing it, we need to get some activity in that building. We've had several people reach out to us and express a desire to open auto mechanic shop there. And we do believe having the right tenant in there will deter a lot of things Joyce has experienced. She is correct. My father does live in North Carolina, and since he's left, it has been difficult to manage it. Well, I moved back from North Carolina 2 years ago, and it's my goal, Joyce, to stop all of it. I do want you to, have your neighborhood back the way it used to be. You will see me over there cutting the grass, trimming the fence line, and I will have an active presence because we do know that it is on a dead end and it is attractive to a lot of people to just go over there. And so, again, sorry for your experience, and I promise I will be highly involved and not allow that to happen.
Thanks for your comments, sir. I also want to go back. Is there any other comments on this hearing only? On this hearing, go ahead, ma'am, if you'd like to go to the podium.
This is the second time that this rezoning has been addressed. They show you pictures here of the 2 cars parked there. What they don't show you is the pictures of the junk. It's a junkyard. That's what it is. They put cars in there. They don't have license plates on them. They're wreckers. They've been damaged, and they pile them all up in that area. This is not done from people from the outside. This is done from the people who are existing in that building. And they're all along there. And it doesn't make sense for our community, our neighborhood, to have that in there. When they say car repair shop, you think of, okay, we go get our car repaired in and out. No, it's a junk. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Can I, is it allowable for me to ask
go,
a
go.
question? Ms. Owens, really quickly, what would you all think as a neighborhood if there was a caveat that to be able to say you could possibly rezone it for this if you do all of these things first? Can you go back to the microphone?
They've done it twice, and there was no improvement. Without it being rezoned, without it being whatever the conditions that it need to be. Once they got them out, 4 months later, they went right back in there. That's why you had the 2 complaints in the 2023 and 2024, September of 2024. Yeah, they did the same identical thing. Same identical thing. That's why they got the complaint back. Okay?
Does it matter that he has moved back to Ohio? What if he were visible in the neighborhood, cleaning things up? Would you trust it?
He's not the one that was doing it. It was the people that are running the business over there that are dumping the trash.
Okay.
It's their own trash.
I hear
Okay?
you. Yeah.
Nobody's coming in there dumping it. It's them. Whoever they let have the building to operate whatever they're doing. It's their trash. They don't clean up. They don't clean up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to keep in mind that tonight's hearing, this is a hearing, then it'll be a first reading, not voted on tonight. Within that time, I know I won't be the only commissioner that'll be driving over and looking at that property before we vote in 2 weeks from tonight. So tonight we'll just be hearing it, first reading. In 2 weeks, we'll be doing the final vote, which will be a yay or nay from the commission. 2 weeks. So thank you. No.
Commissioners, I too wanted to just address one item that came up there, just so everybody has an understanding as it relates to rezoning applications. So if the commission would ultimately deny any rezoning case before them, after 1 year from that denial, an applicant could bring back a similar case. So why, in the past, you've had this and then it's come up again, is the fact that after 1 year, a property owner could bring a similar case back before the plan board and the commission seeking that rezoning. So that's why you may see multiple times a property goes before you for a rezoning. So I just wanted to address that.
Okay,
Is that a function of state law or charter?
Jill, I believe it's our codified ordinances as it relates to zoning, rezoning, correct?
That's correct. Yes, it's codified ordinance.
Okay. So it's our own ordinance.
And it's not
Thank you.
always bad that somebody has an opportunity to revisit it. It's not always bad. Sometimes it's taken advantage of, sometimes it's not. But it's definitely something that's been around for quite some time. I would like to, is there any other comments on this hearing? I would like to revisit the last two hearings. Was there somebody in the audience that wanted to speak at the previous two hearings? Did not ask for public comment, so I just want to give that opportunity now for the 650 and the 655 hearing, 645 and 650 hearings. No? Okay. Is there a motion to conclude this hearing?
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett,
Yes.
Mrs. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Houston,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yes. We're going to take a 2-minute break before we start our formal meeting. We won't be taking a break during the meeting.
Give it now.
The formal meeting for City Commission is called to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Dr. Estrop?
Here.
Mrs. Houston?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett?
Here.
Mr. Rue?
Here. Please stand for the invocation and pledge. Father, thank you that we get a chance to come together today and make decisions for our city. I pray that you give us wisdom, give us Before we begin, just want to acknowledge today was a beautiful Earth Day, and after hearing the presentation, how important it is that the effort for clean and renewable energy, it continues the fight, and just want to acknowledge that. Also, I'm going to acknowledge that the death of Pope Francis. I'm not Catholic, but when world leaders like that die, and he was influential in many different ways, I'd like to read a quote from him. I prefer a church which is bruised, hurting, and dirty, because it has been on the streets, rather than a church which is unhealthy from being confined and clinging to its own security. A quote from Pope Francis. We'll go ahead and continue with our agenda. Excuse me. Is there a motion to approve minutes?
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Here.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston? Yes. Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Your own turn.
Everybody take a breath and a drink of water. The City Commission remains committed to creating a conducive environment for constructive and productive dialogue for engaging for our community. Public comments will remain at the beginning of the legislative meeting, followed by the passage of the minutes from previous meeting. Those wishing to speak must fill out a comment card and provide their name and address for the record. A state-issued ID or driver's license must be provided when filling out the card, and only residing residents within Springfield and Clark County will be permitted to speak during this period. Comment cards will be accepted 15 minutes after the start of the formal meeting. Those who are determined to have been provided false information will be denied to be able to speak at this meeting and the next meeting. We appreciate the citizen feedback relative to the commission stating their addresses to speakers, but we've decided to modify this practice and will no longer be reading the addresses aloud. The clerk will utilize the information provided on the comment cards. We're truly committed to making the meeting environment a place where people have the opportunity to share their thoughts, their ideas, and concerns. The commissioners and staff are listening. We're taking notes and researching information relative to each of your comments. While honoring First Amendment principles, the City Commission reserves the right to regulate the time, place, manner of public comments to ensure that proceedings remain orderly, respectful, and conducive to constructive dialogue. While we fully respect the First Amendment rights of all individuals, disruptions or any conduct that impedes the orderly progress of the meeting will not be tolerated. Should any individual be escorted or asked to leave the meeting due to disruptive behavior on 3 separate occasions, they'll be notified that they're considered trespass and barred from attending future City Commission meetings. After the public comment period time, the City Commission may respond to matters brought forth during the public comment period. And we will also direct the city manager and staff to answer questions posed during the public comment period. If a question needs additional information, the city manager and staff will follow up with the next individual in the next few business days and post those answers online. We have a few comment cards, and we'll begin with former Mayor Copeland's wife, Clara Copeland. It's nice to see you, ma'am.
It's nice to be here. I have heard a rumor, and so I'm here to ask the question, are we having Culture Fest this year? Because Culture Fest, I had the honor of being co-chair from 2009 till COVID, and it was the most wonderful event where we greeted all people. On that day, we gave more hugs than any other day of the year. It was so powerful. And so I'm just waiting to hear.
Thank you, Ms. Copeland. We'll definitely have an answer for that after the rest of
Thank
the
you.
comments. Appreciate you. Beth Donahue?
I've stood at this podium many times. My subject has always been domestic violence. I return today with a tragic validation. Last August, I stood here and shouted, Springfield is a breeding ground for serial domestic violence offenders. Y'all laughed about it. In September, I presented my serial domestic violence offender report to the Midwest Criminal Justice Conference in Chicago. No one there laughed at the classifications. Of course, these were PhD educated criminologists, experts in understanding criminal behavior. My findings were serious then, and they remain deadly serious now. In October, I held a public meeting. I said clearly and unequivocally, Springfield has over 100 of these animals. It's only a matter of time before we see an escalation to murder. At that meeting, with Commissioner Tackett in attendance, I read the name Raymond Scott. I identified him as a serial domestic violence offender. In February, Scott was charged with the murder of Kalina Bentley. I gave you his name, and you did not act with the urgency this crisis demands. I told you repeatedly, Prosecutor DeBartolo had an 83% dismissal rate involving domestic violence cases, an 83% failure rate to protect victims and hold abusers accountable. I said you needed to fire the prosecutor or have him resign. On March 15th, he resigned, yet there was no announcement to the public about his departure or the hiring of the new prosecutor. Why the silence? Recently, HB 111 was signed into law, which makes domestic violence a felony. But there is a critical flaw in HB 11. The enhancement only takes effect when the offender has at least 2 previous domestic violence convictions. And that is precisely the one thing DeBartolo, under your oversight, could not accomplish with his 83% dismissal rate in domestic violence cases, a simple misdemeanor conviction. My question to you tonight, Mayor and Commissioners, how many more people in our community must become victims or lose their lives? The city prosecutor's failure is undeniable, and his failure cost a person's life. At a February commissioners meeting, you instructed City Attorney Jill Allen to research dismissed cases in municipal court, and still no report from the city. What do I want? I want a simple and direct acknowledgement of your failures. Stop treating domestic violence as a low priority nuisance. The city must implement strategies based on actual research and data, not dismissive ignorance. SDVC is here to help, or Mayor, we can be the source of your political destruction. Thank you.
Diane Daniels.
I always know when spring is to come, when Brian goes babyface. Here we are. We must be going to have a whole spate of nice weather. So my moment of smile, basically over the last 6 months, actually maybe a year, was to watch with a smile on my face and a song in my heart, the destruction of acres of solar panels during Hurricane Milton. Likewise, last month in Oklahoma, I watched just in glee as row upon row of windmills met their destruction. Oh, how wonderful green energy is, isn't it? Now to my questions. which will be answered hopefully tonight, and my phone still works and my email still works. Whatever happened to the sculpture, the Oracle, which I believe it was called, that sat out in front of this city building? Is it carefully stored, and will it reappear at some later date at some other location? It did cost $87,000. Question number 2, why is it that no one, including the person responsible for such things, has a firm grip on the number of migrant Hispanics and Haitians residing in Springfield? Just so you know, I know the answer. So that concludes what I have for you tonight. Thank you.
Jennifer Casto.
Good evening, Mayor Rue, City Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. I just wanted to touch briefly on an event that we held this past Saturday with Indivisible Springfield. We had it here at City Hall. There were roughly 400 to 450 people that did attend. We had wonderful speakers, individuals from a variety of different backgrounds speaking about different subjects. It was really great to see the city of Springfield in conjunction with some of our neighbors from Greene County, Yellow Springs, and Dayton that came and joined us in love and in celebration of our city and everything wonderful that we do have going on here. I did have one question. When we first got to the event, which was roughly about 3:30, we had some members, or some officers rather, from our dialogue team, which, as I understand, is new to the city police department. They did advise us that we were unable to have amplification equipment due to Ordinance 509.12, which states that you can't have anything amplifying microphones, radios, things like that go up to a distance of 25 feet. Now, when I had done my research prior to the fact, and when I was advised that City Hall is for public use, that you no longer have to rent that, you don't, or lease that, however you want to say that, you do not have to have a permit or anything of that nature. I was not aware of this ordinance, and I was not aware of the sound issue. A police officer that I spoke with a couple days prior to the event, also, I didn't have any questions about our sound or was not advised that we could not use sound. I would like to thank Mrs. Tracy Tackett, Brian Heck, and the city police chief for working with us and allowing us to use that sound equipment. As far as to my knowledge, there were no complaints or anything about any of that. Everything was nonviolent and peaceful as it needed to be to exercise our First Amendment rights. So my question is, because we do intend, and that being Indivisible Springfield, we do intend on having events going forward. So I would just like to know, because we may at some point utilize sound once again, I just need to know if we do need to get a permit, do I need to call the city police department, or how that would work, just to ensure that we don't have a hiccup at the very beginning. And that's really all that I have. And I really just want to thank you for having those police officers there. They were wonderful. They kept an eye on everything. They were very courteous and very willing to work with us. And it was a fantastic event. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have answers very shortly. Wes Babian.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor Rue and Commission, for the opportunity to speak. I wish to commend you and the staff of the city for what looks to be a promising way ahead. Recent developments for housing and major economic investments in the city and county provide hope for our future in our community. It is to the credit of many partners working together to see these signs of positive progress. For many years, I, along with others, have advocated for investment in parts of our city and our community that have long been neglected and left behind. I encourage you to continue to consider the potential for investment in our legacy neighborhoods. There exists here an amazing housing stock that await the attention necessary to strengthen our neighborhoods. I am fully aware of the circumstances and uncertainty that we are facing regarding funding in the current environment. Nonetheless, this community will have a thriving future as we take the long view of planning and vision that includes every neighborhood, north, south, east, and west. One community that I'm aware of that's been involved in housing development and other forms of development for many years has said that their future plans are not about buildings, but building people, investing in human development. A healthy community does not lose sight of the social determinants of health and well-being. Let's commit to encourage growth that does not leave people behind or that fails to see the incredible opportunities that our immigrant neighbors offer to us in these endeavors. Please bear this reality in mind as we move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda Richardson?
My name is Amanda Richardson. I was born in Springfield and have lived here for most of my life. When folks that live in the area come to the city commission meetings and say that the Hispanic or Haitian immigrants are, quote, content to live like livestock, unquote, and, quote, care nothing about this country, this state, this county, or this city, except for what they can be given or can take from it, close quote, they're peddling in very old racist tropes about people that they don't know anything about. Comparing other human beings to animals to dehumanize them is about as racist and gross as it gets. Racist not just because it's prejudice against an entire group of people, but it plays into systemic racism and white supremacy that says this group of people is undeserving. They're not people. They're not like us. They don't belong here. They are not fit to live in our society. I wanted to speak seriously on this topic and give it the proper deference that it deserves. It's important to recognize this for what it is. It's an appeal to some of the worst tendencies we have as human beings, to push out and demonize others that are different. More importantly, it's a direct appeal to fascism, that the social hierarchy we see in the world where Black Americans are more likely to live in poverty than white Americans is due to an intrinsic character defect of Black folks, and that's why they are bad. Fascism needs people to believe that social hierarchies are immutable and unchanging because some groups of people are just better than others naturally, when in reality, nothing about society and how we organize ourselves as humans is natural at all. We know this because we are the only species on the planet that does it in the various ways that we do. It's important for us to talk about the ways that people will try to influence us into believing things like all the Haitian immigrants in Springfield are illegal or criminals or whatever lie they're selling. Fascist governments will target people by making the people themselves illegal for existing, then punishing them for the crime of existing, and ultimately try to move people to a separate place to legally argue that this person or group of people no longer has legal protections, so whatever we do is permitted. It's exactly what Guantanamo Bay is, and what we have seen historically before and during World War II in Eastern Europe, where both Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union would move people to places where they argued the law couldn't reach, so then they could commit atrocities against those people. It's why the Nazi labor camps and extermination camps were primarily in Poland, and why the Soviet gulags were primarily in Siberia and Kazakhstan. For anyone who wants to learn more about the history of how these things happened, I highly recommend the book Bloodlands by American historian Timothy Snyder. It chronicles specifically how people were moved into lawless zones in occupied Poland and Ukraine, among other Eastern European nations, in the early 20th century, and the legal frameworks that Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union used to justify their action. To the city commissioners and the mayor, I hope that when you hear folks spouting off the oldest of racist tropes, it goes in one ear and straight out the other. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have some answers to some of the questions. Could you answer Mrs. Copeland's question? Logan?
Sir, Mayor Rue, Commissioners, good evening. Mrs. Copeland's question is very timely, as I just answered this question for our office and frontline staff members today. So I'd like to I'd like to read a prepared statement here. And it reads, the City of Springfield will not be resuming the Culture Fest celebration moving forward. While we remain deeply committed to honoring and celebrating the rich diversity that makes our community unique, Organizing this event requires significant staff time and resources, which are currently needed for essential city services. Although Culture Fest has not been held in recent years, we continue to look for meaningful ways to engage and celebrate inclusion and cultural expression throughout the year. And then I did want to just say that I'd encourage everyone to check our social media channels for additional opportunities to engage with us. So I stand by for any questions you may have.
So if we wanted to be a resource or a help to a group that wanted to take on a Culture Fest style event, we would be open to that.
100%.
The question is the city staff, the city of Springfield putting on, that's what we're answering. But we would stand behind and help and aid an organization that wanted to have Culture Fest or a Culture Fest type event on our city plaza.
Absolutely, Mayor Rue.
And I know it was stalled because of the redoing of the plaza and then it was looked at by the staff and the decision was made by the staff. But thank you for the question and thank you for the statement.
I do have just a clarification. Are those decisions made by city commissioners typically, or is that specific to city staff?
City staff time being made to that, committing those resources, and especially with a lot of the changeover in staff.
I just really basically wanted to put it out there that the commissioners did not have a say in this decision for or against. So, and staff is there to make the best decisions that they can for our city. So thank you. Although I am personally disheartened by us not having Culture Fest this year done by the city.
Other answers to questions, Brian?
Yes, one of the questions was about Oracle's vision. It is currently stored out at our wastewater treatment plant where we have excess area for storage. We have been working for potential locations or new locations for it, and we'll continue to look for those locations as we would like to see it reappear in the community.
It's my understanding when it was taken down that it was originally designed to be in an open field so you could actually be on it and see through it and the way the artist intended it. We all got used to it downtown and it was very artistic and it was here, but it's not been thrown away, nor will it. We're going to find a nice space for it at some point. But it was a concern at the time. Go ahead. Any other answers?
Yes, as it relates to the ordinance and the sound, one to the question, yes, a permit is not required for City Hall as that's a public space. And so anyone is welcome to use that. They're not guaranteed that space is only for them. As far as the use of amplification, we'll have to take a look at that ordinance because prior to when we did rent the plaza, that included sound equipment. So now that we don't rent the plaza, we'll have to take a look at that ordinance as it relates to a public space like the plaza. So we can certainly do that and make a recommendation to commission.
Okay. Any other answers we have?
I do have just
Go ahead.
one follow-up question for Logan, just so that we have clarification to all of our citizens. I just want to dive a little bit deeper into the decision because because it crossed my mind just here, and I want to make sure that as a city, we're not giving messaging that we don't support culture, right? And I think we kind of alluded to that in Rob's statement, but I would really like to just dig into that because I do understand why you've made this decision, right? Because when I first said I'm disheartened, I'm like, oh man. And then my mind went immediately to like, oh man, is the city concerned or fearing backlash for holding a Culture Fest? But then I took one more beat, right? And then I remembered, like why we are trimming some of the fat. And so if you could just dive into that a little bit more as it connects to Culture Fest.
Yes, ma'am. So definitely want to stress the importance of culture and diversity in our community here in Springfield. This is not a decision that we made lightly. It really boils down to what are essential services that we can provide to the community at this time, and really had to prioritize our time there when it came to staff and limited resources. not to speak for Mayor Rue, but I believe what he was saying was we love Culture Fest and definitely would love to see it continue. So if there was another nonprofit or a community group that says we'd like to take this and run with it, we will support. Me and my team will support 100% when it comes to facilitating another Culture Fest that may not be run by the city, but would still, be able to happen moving forward.
I apologize. I guess I should have maybe directed that question to Katie a little bit. I don't know, or Manager Heck. Thank you so much, Logan. I appreciate that statement.
Yes, ma'am.
I think also something, the hiring practices within the city government and the fact that we live and make an effort for culture diversity is something that the organization definitely does. And the good thing is that the city government's not defined by one event. One very important event that has been celebrated for how many years, Ms. Copeland? How many years did it happen? 25, 30? Yeah. So very long time, very important. And I'll ask the former mayor's wife from her seat. She can say right there. But thank you for answering that. But it's super important. But the most important thing is that through an organization, we continue to hold the line on culture and diversity within the organization and our hiring practices. So our city government, our city staff looks like we embrace diversity. And so just worth saying, but I've attended the event many times and it's an excellent event. And like I said, we would support the effort of another organization to do this event to celebrate diversity in our community. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Rue. Thank you. I appreciate you both.
Okay. Comments from commissioners?
Yeah, I
Ms.
think
Tracy?
a good transition into talking about, evolution of our events down here is we just recently had the Great Golden Egg Hunt. This was the 8th year that we posted it down here. It's citizen driven. It's businesses and citizens putting it on. I do want to give a shout out and just thank all those businesses and volunteers that helped put on that event. We had 75 golden eggs hidden down here. We had thousands and thousands and thousands of candy eggs. I think I'm still sore from launching those like a baseball all over our plaza. But just, big thanks to the citizens that do come together and put on special events for our community. Then I also want to mention that recently I had jury duty. So I was over in the court system and I just want to, thank them for what they do. I want to thank the citizens that show up and complete their civic responsibility in our democracy. And then the other thing I want to share is just like Mayor Rue said, in honoring Earth Day, anyone that really wants to continue the Clark County cleanup, keep Clark County beautiful program. They have a lot of different resources for us, not just this week, but every week they have some opportunities for us to get involved in keeping Clark County beautiful. And if you're interested, you can go to clarkcountyohio.gov and learn more about that. Thank you.
The comments from commissioners? Okay. We'll continue with our first readings by title only.
Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 19.64 acres at 2900 East Main Street, Springfield, Ohio, from Springfield Township I-2 and Springfield and City EECPOD Eastern Edge Corridor Plan Overlay District to CC2 Community Commercial District with a Commercial Arterial Sign District and EECPOD Eastern Edge Corridor Plan Overlay District. Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 0.294 acres at 317 North Belmont Avenue, Springfield, Ohio, from RS5 Low Density Single Family Residence District to CN2 Neighborhood Commercial District. Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 1.5 acres at 430 West Liberty Street, Springfield, Ohio, from M1 General Manufacturing District to CC2 Community Commercial District. Authorizing a contribution to the Springfield Foundation in the amount of $50,000 toward the Future IQ Community Action Plan project. Granting to River North Transit LLC the authority, right, and privilege to establish, maintain, and operate a public transportation system in the city of Springfield, Ohio, for the transportation for hire of passengers only for 5 years with an option to renew for 2 additional 5-year periods, fixing the terms and conditions of such grant and providing for the city's participation in the cost of such operation. Authorizing the rental of employee uniforms, mop, mats, and towels from Centos Corporation Number 2 for an amount not to exceed $200,000 for the 3-year period through the Ohio Department of Administrative Services pursuant to Ohio's Cooperative Purchasing Act in accordance with the provisions of Section 125.04 of the Ohio Revised Code. Authorizing the purchase of one HV507 SFA truck of the newest model year available for an amount not to exceed $99,854.17 for use by the Sewer Department from Rush Truck Centers through the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 5513.01B of the Ohio Revised Code. Authorizing the purchase of one HV507 SFA truck of the newest model year available for an amount not to exceed $99,854.17 for use by the Street Department from Rush Truck Centers through the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 5513.01B of the Ohio Revised Code. Authorizing the city manager to enter into Amendment Number 1 to the contract with Gary Gilbert Jr., doing business as Gilbert's Lawn Service, for nuisance abatement services as needed by the city to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $40,000 for a total amount not to exceed $90,000. Authorizing the city manager to enter into Amendment Number 1 to the contract with OMAC Hauling Incorporated for nuisance abatement services as needed by the city to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $40,000 for a total amount not to exceed $90,000. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for demolition services with Tony Smith, doing business as Tony Smith Trekking and Trucking for a period of 1 year with an option to renew for an additional 1-year period for an amount not to exceed $400,000 for the initial 1-year term. Authorizing the city manager to enter into Amendment Number 1 to the contract for the Planning and Zoning Code Update Project with ZoneCo LLC to increase the contract in an amount not to exceed $7,500 for a total amount not to exceed $168,405 and to extend the completion date to July 1, 2025 and confirming and approving related expenditures incurred from March 1, 2025.
City Manager, is there anything you want to explain in first readings before commissioners ask questions?
Yeah, just a couple items I'll talk through. I'll start towards the bottom, 113-25. This is our annual demolition contract, entering in with Tony Smith Wrecking. Just want to, the $400,000 that this would award up to or a not to exceed amount will provide for demolition of blighted structures throughout residential neighborhoods. Roughly 40 or so houses and associated garages would be estimated to be able to be taken down with this money. So we're averaging right around that $10,000 mark per demolition. The other two kind of code enforcement related items I wanted to clarify because we had items last meeting as it relates to our weed cutting services and how we award multiple contracts. What's happening in this case is these two vendors are the primary vendors that are able to get the work done and complete when they're issued a notice to proceed. And so we're increasing their contract amounts to be able to continue to carry out this work under the contract, which means other contracts would be reduced as talked about and discussed. We award multiple contracts and then we utilize the various vendors that we have under those purchase orders. I'm also happy to report that we're able to purchase 2 new vehicles that are both IH cab and chassis, one for the sewer and one for the street department, replacing 2015 and 2017 models. And then the authorization on the rental of employee uniforms, this relates out primarily to our service department and then the employees out there, where we provide uniforms for the nature of their job, their work. But also what was good about this contract is we were able to combine those other items like mops, mats, and towels into this one contract, saving us money versus having to use two different vendors. And then you heard the presentation earlier about the microtransit service. We hear the name VIA. That is River North Transit LLC. So just so there's no confusion there, that is that item. And then the final one I'll mention is as it relates to the contribution to the Springfield Foundation for the Future IQ Community Action Plan project. This is a plethora of community groups that have come together and trying to develop and research data based evidence that will help inform focus groups and sessions with the community as a whole, both in Springfield and Clark County, so that we can tell our story better, not only internally, but also externally. This contribution is broken out over a 2-year period, so half in 25 and half in 26.
Are there comments from commissioners on first readings? You got it. No, he's first so many times.
Oh, thank you. So I've got to circle back to a first question, short and sweet. How would someone like a nonprofit like Springfield Foundation, what would be some of the steps for a different nonprofit to be able to access funds from the city?
Yeah, this one is specifically related to the project, and Springfield Foundation is just acting as the fiduciary for an overall project amount. So all of the entities that are contributing money, which includes the state of Ohio, Clark County, several of the other foundations in the community, are using Springfield Foundation as purely the fiduciary for this project. But there are opportunities, specifically within community development, often different RFP requests for proposals go out for public service projects and other programming, a lot of times utilizing CDBG dollars that are then go through that RFP, and they submit a proposal, and then we make award there. So always be looking and inquiring with us about potential opportunities to apply for funds.
And then thank you for that, Brian. I appreciate that insight. And then back to Liberty Street. I go back to that because I just can't shake it, one. And then two, wondering, because if we get to second readings before we ask these questions, there may not be enough time to act on those things. I certainly hear the neighborhood and the community members, but I also, he's not here. I also understood the gentleman's point that he has moved back, but I do not know if I could trust that as a commissioner to approve something like that. So just asking legally, I guess, to Jill, how could we not only ensure that something is it legal to ensure that their upkeep was done prior to him going into that space or the rezoning? And also, is there something that we could say that he would have to ensure that was maintained over multiple years? Is that something that we can do as a city to ensure that property is not trashed and is not, or that you know what I mean, is not being negative on that neighborhood?
The vehicle to do that is not with rezoning, though. We could look at that, and a property owner can certainly agree before rezoning. We've tabled things before in the past when a property owner has come forward and asked, there's been concerns about a condition of the property, and they remedy those conditions before, so they may choose to do that.
Sure.
But it's really where we look at our nuisance abatement, we look at code compliance.
Right.
But it's not rezoning that would address that.
Okay, but I guess my question is because what I'm hearing the community members say is that, yes, they will come in, they'll clean it out, but then as soon as the next tenant moves in, it'll be right back out there. So is there any way that the city could legally ensure or somehow put that in a caveat with that business owner,
Usual way to do that is with to maintain it. Yeah, is with a conditional use, but it's permitted use in that zoning. So you would have a conditional use would be a way to put conditions on that. Okay. But if it's permitted use, you can't do that.
Okay, and just wondering.
Which means if they keep their house dirty but they're allowed to have their house there, the way I'm hearing it, the way I'm trying to hear.
Correct.
So if they have an auto business, the way I may see an auto business and the way somebody Smith may see an auto business, it's, I would not keep it that way. So, or somebody wouldn't. So is that what you're saying, Jill? I want clarity on that too.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. That makes.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
It's frustrating.
I guess my main point is, how can we ensure that it's maintained? You know what I mean? Is that it's something that the city can do? Like, I get you through the nuisance and things like that, but then that kind of restarts that whole cycle again of like, now I've got to make so many complaints, or it's got to get terrible before it could get worse. Like, is there anything that says that you have to maintain this? I guess not. I'm just dreaming.
Yeah, like at property improvement plans or something like that, but it's going to be risky. Every time a new owner comes in there, they have an opportunity to use their property as
they see fit.
Yeah, to the best, hopefully, ability that they can. And then we have to deal with the secondary effects through the code compliance.
Thank you.
Good questions. Restaurant?
The very first item 077-25. I assume that went through CETA, and I'm just curious, did Springfield Township support the request?
I believe it was a unanimous approval by the CETA board, which Springfield
Includes
Township
Springfield
would have.
Township.
Yeah, they have seats on that board.
Very good. Thank you.
One,
Yes, Commissioner Tackett.
thank you. Just curious, you had mentioned that the blighted properties and 40 properties paying for this. How many blighted properties, best guess, in our city, just to kind of get an idea of how many we have to deal with?
Yeah, probably the best indicator to look at is, through our vacant property registry. If you remember the GOPC study, they identified about 1,200. When we started the VPR, that started to come down, and, we had anywhere between 700 and 800 properties that were identified as vacant. Now, not all vacant properties under the VPR would be necessarily blighted to the point if they needed demolition. And that is one of the things that we have shifted, where we're not only we can't demolish our way out of our problem because we know we need housing as well. So there's a variety of tools that are in place, like VPR, but also receivership, where we identify properties that have, become tax delinquent and so forth, and take them through that process to try to get them back into productive use as homes in the community. So we try to reserve the demolition for the absolute worst, where there's potentially no chance for salvage of those.
And can you mention anything like about the mow to own, as you were talking about different tools to kind of save
Yeah,
some
so
property?
oftentimes a lot of the lots that we have moved forward with in demolition in the past, and also these would be opportunities for adjacent property owners to pursue the mow to own program, where they can apply for the property and they can maintain it for that length of a mowing season, an entire mowing season, and then we will work with them to transfer title or deed to that property. And we've had great success in that as well.
How would the citizens contact to find out information?
Yeah,
about
if they
these?
want to contact our community development department, I believe 937-324-7380.
Thank you.
The comments from the audience on first readings only? Hearing none, we'll move on to second readings.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Agilent Technologies Incorporated for the purchase and installation of inductively coupled plasma optical emission spectrometer at the Springfield wastewater treatment plant for an amount not to exceed $81,166.48.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are the comments from commissioners?
I was wondering if you could once again tell us, this sounds like something I might find over at the hospital as opposed to the wastewater plant. So if Chris can maybe explain how this tool is used.
This is a device we use in our lab at the wastewater treatment plant to really look at the characteristics of the wastewater, see what kind of constituents are in there. Primarily, this helps us find heavy metals This device, which replaces one from 2011, will allow us to put a sample in there, and it will tell us all of the different heavy metals that are present. In the past, we would have to put a sample in and say, look for nickel, and then another, and you look for the next heavy metal we need. So this will create great efficiency. Right now, we're spending about $23,000 a year to get samples done at an outside lab. So we should get a great return on investment with this device and be able to keep the waste stream much safer.
Once you've identified a heavy metal, then are there treatments that you can apply to deal with that, or what do you do with that information?
So we have an individual named Jeff Yinger. He is our industrial pretreatment coordinator. He works with industries to make sure that they have pretreatment processes in their factories to not send out levels of heavy metals that could then impact the end result of our waste stream.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a data record sharing and access supplemental agreement by and between the city of Springfield, Ohio, and the Board of Clark County Commissioners in connection with records retention storage and data related to the operation of the county's 911 dispatch center for an amount not to exceed $36,395 per year for 10 years for a total amount not to exceed $363,950.
Move.
It's been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners?
This is a
From-
great step
Yes,
forward.
it's a good step forward. From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a right-of-way transfer agreement with the Clark County Land Reutilization Corporation to accept .004 acres of right-of-way along South Yellow Springs.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners?
Yes. Manager Heck, could you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, so this is the right-of-way transfer agreement. So we had transferred properties and there were to the land bank, and then there was a piece of this right-of-way, certainly that the land bank did not need or was part of that property transfer. So they're just transferring that little piece back to us, which is part of right-of-way.
Is it going to change anything?
No.
Okay, thank you.
The comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Amending Ordinance 91-90 passed March 12, 1991, and commonly known as the codified ordinances of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by repealing and replacing Part 11 entitled Zoning Code in its entirety.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Other comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
Just like to thank everyone involved in this. This is a huge step forward. It represents our ability to not only get on top of it, but hopefully to stay on top of this as things change in our community. So again, my thanks, and I think I speak for my colleague, our thanks to everyone who was involved in this. Thank you very much.
Comments from the audience? Thank you.
Just wanted to say thanks for considering infill. That's a huge problem that we've had in Springfield for a long time, and I'll give you a prime example. There is one house left on like the 400 block of Tibbetts Avenue between Pleasant and Harrison, and that's the only house that's been there since 1996. All the other ones were demolished before then, and so not that everybody's necessarily dying to move into that neighborhood, but the idea of infill to deal with some of those lots that in 30 years haven't been touched. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into MPA Agreement Number 35221, Amendment Number 5 between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation in connection with the CLA SR 72 6.83 project, PID number 113792, to provide clarity regarding the funding source.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. City Manager, you want to, or Ms. Katie, you want to provide clarity on this? Be great. Either.
And this is, essentially, this is related to the State Route 72 project, and we have LPA agreements because there's state and federal funds involved. And this is just, again, providing additional clarity as funds are moved around the different line items. The state, ODOT specifically, has different line items based off of real estate, construction, design, engineering. So this is just clarifying, does not impact any of the local piece. It's all the state and federal.
Thank you. Other comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Emergency?
Approving and adopting the Clark County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation 5-Year Plan Update for the City of Springfield, Ohio, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. For comments from commissioners, you want to go ahead and speak to it, Brian, before Dr. Estrop?
Please.
Yeah, this is just the 5-year plan is something that we work closely with Clark County EMA and adopting and identifying potential risks as it relates to natural disasters and so forth. And so this plan lays out strategies, what those challenges might be, but also identifies potential funding sources and opportunities for projects to help mitigate those risks in the community. And just, again, very thankful for the partnership between the city and Clark County as it relates to these efforts.
So, as an example, perhaps, if a tornado, heaven help, a tornado would go through Springfield, Clark County, and this plan has in place how different agencies, organizations would respond.
Yeah, it talks about the hazards that we could be subject to, like a tornado. So we don't focus on hurricanes because we're not, even though we did
Right.
get the winds, but an actual hurricane or a volcano eruption, it focuses on those hazards that we potentially could have in our community here in Springfield and Clark County, and then helps identify any risks that might be associated with that and how we can try to mitigate or minimize those risks. Great example is flooding, something that we've seen because of all the rain that we've had this year. So it can identify areas that are potential higher risk or hazards for flooding, and they can work to identify or mitigate that risk for future.
Thank you.
You mentioned the EMA, and I just think it's a good moment to highlight what they do. Can you explain who EMA is, how it's funded, what they do? I didn't even know about this part of our government, I guess, until I was elected.
Clark County Emergency Management Agency is a countywide agency that reports under the county administrator. And so they are tasked with emergency management activities throughout the community. So they try to support and provide resources and access to resources, facilitating resources. Great examples of that can be, a windstorm that generates a lot of tree debris in our community and stuff. We can work with them to identify maybe we need additional assets or resources like a tub grinder to come into the community, and another community throughout the state has that tool available. They help us procure that into our community so we can utilize it to deal or address the disaster that we have. They do a lot of training events and other events just so we can be prepared, hopefully for something that never happens, but we can be prepared.
Thank you.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Majors Enterprises Incorporated for the 2025 curb ramps project for an amount not to exceed $327,834 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. City Manager?
Yeah, so this is a contract for, as it reads, the 25 curb ramps project, as we work to bring our curb ramps in the intersections up to ADA compliance. This is working to get out ahead of some state projects that are upcoming, and this actually makes it a little bit more efficient and cost-effective, saving roughly $3,000 per intersection by doing it this way.
Excellent. Other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett? Yes. Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes.
Confirming and approving change order number 1 to the contract between the city and Insight Pipe Contracting LLC for the 2024 sewer lining project to decrease the contract in an amount not to exceed $33,469.20 for a total amount not to exceed $364,883.30, authorizing the city manager to execute said change order number 1 and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. That'll take care of the first year of our 10-year contract. Good. Any other comments from commissioners? Dr. Estrop?
Well, I just wondered if Brian could explain why I love that we're decreasing.
Yeah, so ultimately this is.
I love it, but I got a feeling the other shoe's about to drop.
Well, we're at the end of the agenda, so unfortunately, we don't.
This is just, so as you know, we have our sewer lining contracts and projects as it relates to trying to line our sewers as opposed to having to replace them. One of the areas, as these are usually spread around to multiple sewer infrastructure projects, there was a decrease in quantities just because of lack of ability to access the pipe to be able to
Get to the pipe.
Yeah, to do the sewer line.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Comments from the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. New items?
Consenting to the appointment of Khalil Scott to the City Planning Board.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there comments from commissioners?
I am very, very pleased to see this addition and knowing that Khalil Scott is stepping up to serve his community.
Yes. From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. I'm just going to, I see a 10925 before this that we just voted on.
It was a minor revision to the language that was made from the published ordinance.
Nothing we need to vote on.
No,
Okay,
nope.
thank you for the clarity. Okay, go ahead with 117, please. Thank you.
Consenting to the reappointment of Zachary Harvey to the Board of Building Appeals and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. I just want to thank Zach for stepping up and helping us on the Building Appeals Board. Other comments from commissioners? From the audience? Clerk, call the roll.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. There are announcements from commissioners. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Mrs. Brown?
Yes.
Dr. Estrop?
Yes.
Mrs. Houston?
Yes.
Mrs. Tackett?
Yes.
Mr. Rue?
Yes. Thank you for coming tonight.